Hi parents, Dr. Tony Ebel checking in here, and I want to talk to you about a topic that we are ridiculously passionate about in the work that we do, because we've been able to see just some really unheard of results with speech delays, with speech challenges, with one of them, obviously really a tough version of speech challenges, Apraxia, where a child just flat out struggles to reach that milestone, to get to that place where speech and outward communication really comes online. And what parents often struggle with is understanding why this is happening. So what we're really going to cover is two parts. First off, we'll break it down. We'll really teach you speech in a ridiculously simple format. Now, I do not mean to oversimplify it. Trust me, I am a huge neurodevelopmental, neurofunctional nerd, so I know that there is a whole lot more to speech than the three pieces, parts, and elements that we're going to teach here when we get to the iPad. So we work hand in hand all of the time with the incredible early intervention and pediatric therapy teams like speech pathologists and speech therapists. And so I want to let those folks especially know I am intentionally simplifying it to these three parts so that you guys as parents can really understand where the jam up is, what is not happening that needs to get taken care of, that needs to get the right support, the right care, the right adjustments to get back online, to get back functioning, to get the totality, the accumulation of speech online. But then what we're really going to do is we're going to give you some very surprising information that not a lot of parents know about, which is why one of these three parts of speech would be jammed up and would be not functioning appropriately in the first place. So let's switch over to the iPad here and get into really teaching you the three parts of speech in a very simple construct. They go in order. So remember, the way the nervous system works, and I'm jumping right to the nervous system because the nervous system controls everything. I know when we get into the land of therapies like speech and OT and PT with our kiddos, there's a lot of conversation about muscles, and there's a lot of conversation about motor tone. And is there too much tone? Is there too little tone? Is there altered or disorganized tone? And the answer is yes. So this is a muscular conversation we're going to have. This is a motor function, motor development conversation. But in order to have any conversation about motor tone and motor coordination, which is speech tone and coordination and execution, you actually have to go deeper. You've got to go into the central nervous system. The central nervous system is what really controls the motor tone and coordination. So we're going to actually talk about neuro function here in a big way. And the very first thing that happens with speech is what we call perception, okay? Now, another easy way to understand perception is input. So this is the auditory processing. Now, one of the biggest tie-togethers with so many kiddos who are struggling with speech delays and apraxia is they also have sensory processing or sensory integration disorder. You'll find a lot of videos and a lot of articles right here on our website if you're watching this here, and on a lot of different patient stories and articles and information about sensory challenges, including our sensory processing disorder test, where we look for the real root challenges of sensory and auditory processing that is not found on any other test anywhere else in healthcare. But the reason I bring sensory processing up is sensory processing is an input perception challenge, and then also a coordination challenge. And so the second thing that we need to do with speech is once that auditory processing, once that information from the environment is coming in, then the brain and the central nervous system coordinate, integrate, process it, and then output it. So the third part of speech is output or execution. That's there. Now what I want to do is I want to draw your attention to what I want to kind of call a space between the notes. The way I like to really understand speech and teach it to parents is obviously we can look at these things as three individual components: input, perception, coordination, and then output, execution. But what we really need in here, between number 2 and number 3 is the formation of speech. And what a lot of parents tell us is, hey, it's really easy to see that my child is connected. If we dive to a different, we went over to SPD over here. If we go over to ASD in a different direction, autism spectrum disorder, one of the real root challenges that leads to that child having speech challenges in apraxia is their nervous system is so sympathetic dominant, so fight or flight, there's not perception. The opposite, the antithesis of perception is protection. And so what you'll find with a lot of kiddos with autism spectrum challenges, they are so locked into fight or flight. Their central nervous system is so subluxated, so, a term we'll get to in a minute, so stuck on sympathetic dominance, they don't even have the perception to then get to coordination and execution. What happens with a lot of sensory kiddos and apraxia kiddos is they have the perception. Parents and practitioners and others can tell that auditory and environmental sensory information is getting in, but then you can see that child get jammed up, right? So they get stuck in the processing, in the fluidity, in the sequencing of speech. Especially parents will say, it's like we know that he's trying to get the words out, we know that she's trying to get the words out, but they just aren't coming out. They just can't get out. Or an asterisk to this is speech delays or speech challenges where they're coming out, but the formation and the execution is not smooth, and it's not organized, and it's not really, really fluent and fluid like that, and that would be speech challenges or speech impediments in that way. And what happens then is if it's not coming out smoothly, you got to dig in and say, okay, could the challenge, oops, didn't mean to switch over to eraser, could the challenge that's actually causing the inability to output at all, apraxia, or the inability to output smoothly and fully, so speech delays and challenges, maybe it's not just here. Maybe the initial cause, the challenge is here. There's a word for this, and I'm super nerdy with you now, in neurology that is called diaschisis, okay? And diaschisis means, it's a word kind of like subluxation that we use in pediatric neurologically focused chiropractic. Diaschisis means, hey, the nervous system could have an injury, could have a problem, could have a disruption and a distortion in function in one place, one area of the central nervous system or the brain, but the symptom, the impediment, the challenge could show up elsewhere because everything the way God designed us is connected to neurons. And what we find when we really do our testing for kiddos with apraxia, sensory, speech challenges, is that the real challenge of the nervous system is one step up on the ladder, and they have interference in between perception and coordination. So if you alter coordination, you alter execution. Okay, that's the first part of this very nerdy but very parent-facing lesson in speech delays and apraxia. There's one more bit of information. I need you for a few more minutes to really lean in with me on this one. And please share this video. Please share this video. Please comment below. Any child with any delay, especially if they have apraxia and real big challenges, please share this video. Send it to any and all. Have a chat in your next therapy appointment with your speech pathologist and share this video with them. Send this video out so we can help more kids and more parents, because I'm telling you, a lot of times where different professionals are looking to try and improve the output, they're missing that the challenge is actually on the input and the coordination. And the only way to change step 3 is to actually improve and smooth out the function of step 1 and 2. So where would that go sideways in the first place? What are 3? It's already been written on the iPad here the whole time. The single biggest missing link in speech delays, in apraxia, in a whole host of neurodevelopmental, neurosensory challenges for kiddos is birth trauma, okay? Now, what stinks about the traditional medical approach is when they see speech delays, sensory processing, autism, all these sort of challenges, they kind of just dismiss it as bad luck. But there is something that is happening right in front of so many of us parents during the pregnancy and the birth process that is very neurologically, very neuroscientifically connected to these challenges. And I want to talk you through just a couple of them. So the number one thing that I see in our practice all of the time is, and I'm going to lump, they're different, but I'm going to put them all together on this first line. Anytime that a child was cord wrapped, breech, or a especially had a vacuum extraction delivery, it is almost a guarantee of speech delays, and it really climbs the ladder of the chance that they would have apraxia. I'm going to put them all on here, then we're going to teach you the science behind them. The second most common thing that we see really in a child's case history that will cause speech delays, sensory challenges, apraxia, is a forceps or a manual extraction birth. And the third sort of thing that we find sticking out like a sore thumb when we take case histories of children with apraxia and speech delays that no one else has ever connected the dots to for parents within birth trauma is C-section. Now, this whole time we've had these two things written on here, and I really want to focus on this. So I'm going to move off the iPad, and I kind of like to joke with this. We'll do a little kind of like hands visual charades with this. What is birth trauma? What is so first off, it's referred to as birth intervention. When you really understand birth intervention, a lot of the literature refers to it as augmentation. When you understand what birth intervention, augmentation with a big set of hands, a big pliers, a big plunger, or having a big amount of tension with the cord wrapped or breech position, or even an induction often. Actually, children with induction, I should have wrote that on the iPad. Induction is another one. I should have given you 4 on this. What it does is significantly alters the nervous system's air traffic control center, which is right in the brainstem. So where that doctor either puts their hands or puts their devices and their tools is right on what's called the brainstem, the occiput, the atlas vertebrae, and the axis vertebrae. And these upper cervical neurospinal regions are the single most important, delicate, non-protected parts of the body for a baby. They cannot hold their head and neck up. They've been inside that beautiful mama, and there's no gravity, there's none of that. And so on the way out, they have no ability to actually protect their head and neck. That's why for many weeks, many months afterwards, when you hand the baby over to someone else, you say, hold the neck, hold the head. This is the most easily injured, easily damaged, easily altered component of the body for a baby. And what is happening in so many, literally millions of births today, is we are putting these very physically traumatic interventions into the child's upper neck, upper spine, neurospinal brainstem, and thinking that it's going to be okay. And what happens up here is that function and that movement of C1 and C2 and all these little bones and all these nerves and all these muscles is the perception and coordination location of speech. It's also the perception and coordination location of neuromotor, neuromuscular function to latch and to talk in any way, to use the jaw, to use the vocal cords. All of those nerves come from this brainstem area. So there's something that we call subluxation. Subluxation alters the alignment, creates fixation and tension, and creates an altered neuromuscular function. When you have subluxation, you have a lot of the muscles become constricted, become tight, become too much tone. And when you have too much tension and incoordination and confusion, speech is a very difficult thing to get done. And the worse it is, you don't do it at all. Apraxia. But I guess we'll call it a more mild or moderate version of that subluxation would lead to speech delays and challenges in that way. So the flow chart is this. The number one trigger and causative factor of subluxation in the brainstem, in the upper cervical, in these very important speech processing, motor planning, sensory processing, digesting, sleeping, all the basic functions of development are all controlled by air traffic control up here. Subluxation is triggered by birth intervention on a very regular basis. The tougher, the nastier that birth intervention traditionally, the tougher, the gnarlier that subluxation. So that is the 1-2 punch that leads then to the third step, which is altered functions like speech delays, and apraxia. So I know this is an ultra nerdy neurological video, but I really wanted to be able to use the iPad, use kind of my hands here for you on the end of this to show you that it's actually really, really simple. The physical neuromuscular, neuromotor function of this very delicate area of your child's neck and nervous system dictates the function of perception, input, coordination, processing, output, execution, and formation. All the nerves that do the big parts of that job and the granular, move this muscle, do this way, they all come from up here. That is why probably most likely the single biggest missing link of practitioners and health professionals on your team right now for a child with apraxia or speech delays is a trained, neurologically focused pediatric chiropractor. If you have not had your child assessed and analyzed for that subluxation, for that altered perception and incoordination and altered tone within the nervous system and the muscles in that area, that is where you need to, that's what I would strongly suggest you add to your to-do list next. This is the coolest thing ever. When a pediatric chiropractor gets in there with their examination, with what we call our insight scans, we can find if subluxation's there. That's the first thing. You just want to find out if it's there. Second, you can measure it, you can quantify it, you can locate it, so you and your pediatric chiropractor, what we call our PX Docs network, will know exactly what you're dealing with and put an action plan, a care plan to take care of it. And the coolest thing is when your child starts to get these neurologically focused adjustments, which are ridiculously safe and gentle and easy, and they take tension off of the nervous system, and they improve the tone of the nerves and the muscles, and they reorganize and restore the coordination, the perception, coordination, and the function. Now when you take your child to speech therapy appointments, now when they go to OT, you're going to be able to see so much gains. We work hand in hand with all pediatric therapy teams, and they love when a child is getting neurologically focused subluxation based adjustments from a PX doc or someone in our practice, because then they get so many more gains, so much more improvement with every single therapy session that they're going, because subluxation means stuck. Subluxation means shut down. Subluxation means altered. So no matter how good the therapy is, no matter how good the nutrition is, no matter how good these things are that you're trying to put into your kiddo, if they had birth trauma, especially the ones we went through, and their nervous system is subluxated, and the function of these nerves and muscles and their ability to perceive and coordinate and execute is interfered with, and those signals are jammed, nothing can get through. Not therapy, not nutrition, not craniosacral. A child needs to have a pediatric chiropractor on their team. I really will finish it up with this. If your child has apraxia or speech delays at all, read the article that'll go with this video. Check out all the different patient stories and the case studies that have gone through this. Really understand what's going on with it so you can have fully informed choices, and then hit up our directory. Find your local PX docs that we've trained, and I know they will get the job done for you. Thank you for watching this whole video. Please share, please ask questions, put them in the comments, send us a DM, share this with another family whose child is going through some speech delays or apraxia or sensory or autism challenges, and we will be here at all times to provide hope, answers, and help.